Hello, I'm Julie Ostlund's husband. My name is Newt. I thank everybody for all the support and all the prayers and all the love that was poured out for Julie. I seen the comments that were made and how people thought it was so tough for me to pick my wife up from the funeral home and make that ride home. So I thought I needed to share from the day of the accident till the time I rode in that night. We left home on the morning of August 8th. We stopped in Beulah, Dickinson, and then Riva, South Dakota. After we left Riva, South Dakota, 10 miles before we got to the accident, she pulled over. She thought she heard a noise in the bike. I checked the bike over. I thought everything was all right. So she said, we'll ride on. And right before I walked away, she told me, I'll explain later. I got on my bike. She was running lead and I started following her again. She went through a curve. She made the curve just fine. Started heading southbound. We were 10 miles away from where we stopped and checked the bike. She was running left lane. I was running right, 30, 40 feet behind her. 30 seconds before the accident, a voice told me, you're going to see the accident. And then right out of nowhere, she started drifting right until she left the road and all hell broke loose. The bike started to flip and ejected her over the top. Threw her out across the ditch. The bike flipped, never touched her. I got stopped. I ran down in the ditch to check her pulse, check her breathing. Literally, under a minute, the first EMT was there. I flagged him down. 2 guys on bikes. He said he was an EMT. He come down the bottom of the ditch to help me. The other guy called 911. Within 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, there was a husband and wife showed up. She was an EMT and she had her bag. She come down in the ditch to help further. I backed off, let them do their thing. Took 30 minutes for the ambulance on wheels to get there. Another 10 minutes to get the helicopter. After that, and it seemed like forever for them to get her stable so she could be transported to Monument Health in Rapid City. Went through that. 2 weeks of being in the ICU. A lot of prayers, Bible verses, readings, Julie. Two weeks in, on a Friday, I made preparations to have her sent to a long-term care facility in Billings, Montana. I lined up the money, the ambulance, the facility, everything. Saturday morning, her blood pressure skyrocketed through the roof. Her breathing went nuts. They had to save her. On Sunday morning, I made the call after that to take her off all the life support. We stayed there. Family coming in and out. All your guys' prayers to help us through. After making that call on Sunday, sometime during the week, I had to go to the funeral home and line up and prepare for the funeral. September 3rd, she went to live with God. About 10 minutes to 10 Mountain Time in the evening. Her and I are both organ donors. So there was a delay. Everybody else went home. I stayed down there myself, waiting for the funeral home and the donating to be done. Knowing that I had to pick her up. Finally, about noon or so on Thursday, they called me and said that she was ready to be picked up. So I went to the funeral home on the bike. I picked up my wife, which I knew was going to be a crushing ride. And it was a hard ride because the crash happened at mile marker 157. When I checked into that hotel the first night, they gave me a room with one bed, and that was room number 111. And I told them the second night my family was coming, so I was going to need a room with 2 beds. She handed me a room card, room number 157. And I couldn't help but think there was something to that. And that bothered me for a few days. Until finally I called my cousin, who's a pastor in Billings, Montana. And he said to look it up on the internet and ask the phone what the biblical meaning of 157 is. So I started reading that to Julie and telling her about angel number 157, the mile marker where the crash was, and our room number. So I left the funeral home, and it was a very hard ride. To get to 157. I parked my bike on Thursday afternoon on the shoulder of the road. And I started talking to God, and I walked down to the bottom of the ditch, and I was walking back and forth to the bottom of the ditch. And I was looking at the ground and the marks. I was looking at the scenery, trying to figure out why she left the road, why the crash happened. I walked up on top of the road. I looked at everything from another angle. Still talking to God, telling him I didn't understand. I walked back in the bottom of the ditch. I looked at everything again. I walked back up on top of the road, and I stood facing west, exactly where she left the road. And one of the Bible verses that I was reading, that I thought I was reading to her for the last 4 weeks, says something about don't look at the problem, lift your head and look to God. I bowed my head, I crossed my hands, shut my eyes. The accident replayed in my mind. My wife was in the left lane. She negotiated the curve. Everything was fine. She was headed straight south. Everything was good. She never touched the brakes. She never slowed down. She just veered right. And when I opened my eyes and I lifted my head to look to God, my wife, that day that the crash happened, the angel spoke to me, but I didn't see the angel. My wife seen the angel. That's why she left the road. My wife went to live with God on August 8th. She never suffered. She was never hurting. She was watching over us in the hospital, but she wasn't in her body. That's why when I lined up all that stuff for her to go to Billings, and that was not her wishes, she sent me a signal on Saturday morning at 2:30 in the morning. And I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. That's why I took her off life support. She seen the angel. That's why she left the road. I couldn't see the angel the day of the crash because I would have went towards the angel. It wasn't my time. But God was there to protect her. The angel was there to protect me. The angel was there to protect my wife. And for the first 2 weeks after the accident, I blamed myself. Because I checked the bike and I thought I missed something. The devil was working on me and I knew it. You gotta know when you gotta listen to the devil. He's there, he's real, he's on the attack. But I beat him every time. I promised Julie, 2 weeks in, I promised Julie I promised God first that I wouldn't blame myself. And then I promised God first, and then I promised Julie I wouldn't blame myself for the accident. And when I got to the scene of the accident, on that Thursday, God showed me what happened. And I know why she left the road. She followed the angel home, but she never suffered. I know for a fact that angel was there because that angel spoke to me, and now I know for a fact that angel was there to protect my wife. And another Bible verse tells you that God did not bring you this far to desert you now or harm you. So at that point in time, I knew as these hospital bills arrive, God will take care of us. He didn't give me that angel to desert me now. My wife never suffered. She never felt the pain. The angel took her that day on August 8th. She went to heaven. I love all you guys for the support. It's a huge community. I'm sure I'm glad you're there. And I know God wants me to learn a lot from this. And I will reflect on the last 4 weeks and learn what God wants me to do next. To be a better man, a better leader, a better friend. Thank you guys.